Alrighty, back again for part 2, because,
getting back to, we were talking about,
Willem Dafoe in the Green Goblin suit. But anyway, in the movie, the suit's made for the military, so, I mean, it makes sense why it looks like it does, because it's a military suit.
Yeah, and to be fair, I don't mind that part, and I don't even really mind that his what are you doing, man?
I'm centering it, it was bothering me.
Okay.
I'm OCD.
But, I think for a lot of people, it was just the mask that really bothered them about it.
Which I don't even understand, because I think the mask, I actually like the movie mask better than I do the comics.
I do too.
It looks scary.
And it doesn't look like he's clearly wearing a rubber Halloween costume.
Yeah.
And I get a lot of people are like, it looks like Power Rangers, and I get why, because, it doesn't move.
But let's be honest, with the more realistic tone the Raimi films have,
which is
using the comics thing, it would have looked so dumb in that film.
And as another aside, Spider-Man's wearing basically a Power Ranger suit in this too. It's not like he has to really pantomime to get across what he's doing in the suit. And there's also why there's a lot of moments during fight scenes where we really don't hear Peter talk, because it would be too distracting. Probably one of the weakest scenes in this movie is when him and I'm not saying that, because I love the dialogue in it, but it's Tobey Maguire and Dafoe in the costumes, and they're...
Is this the scene where the building's on fire?
No, I'm talking about the scene where, Peter's after he wakes up from being knocked unconscious.
Oh, that scene, yeah. Where he's, he offers him the choice.
The dialogue in it's great, but they're clearly encumbered by... It's the fight between Batman and Catwoman in Batman Returns the first... They're clearly unable to move very well in those suits, but they have to convey so much emotion... Then because Peter has to be all unconscious, that scene where Dafoe slaps him on the head,
and he just he leans over.
Yeah, and it looks so I get why it does look like a Saturday morning cartoon show. It looks like Power Rangers, but when it's not doing stuff like that, it looks really good. When he's on the glider and when he's...
Which you have to remember too, Dafoe did a lot of stunts for that. He learned how to do that glider.
Yeah, no, and
himself, because he was that dedicated. Getting back to Dafoe, I think a lot of what makes his performance in this movie really, really great, and it stands up. He actually cared.
Yeah,
he cared to know the source material. Yeah. He cared to to do stunts. He cared to learn how to do the glider, and he would sit there, and do stunts in that costume, and it would take them a while to put that on.
Yeah, and I think another thing that helps really well is that him and Raimi both want to give Osborn some humanity, because in the comics at the time, Osborn was just a monster. But he wanted to really take the character back to the 60s, where he was a troubled man who, because of the experiments he'd done to himself, had almost a split personality disorder.
Which they really play. I mean, there's the famous scene in this film where
the scene where he's
talking to himself in the mirror.
Oh, that scene is so good.
It's such a great scene, like you said. I love the acting in it, because you can tell.
The cold shiver down your spine.
Yeah, you can tell Dafoe, when he's playing the Green Goblin, he puts on, another... It's it's an octave lower, whereas when he's playing Norman, it's a normal talking voice. When he goes into Goblin mode, as I call it, it drops, and you can tell it's a different... he's playing a different character.
And he does... his face is so animated. When he's normal, he's just he almost has a deer in the headlights, a doe-eyed look. And then when he
turns sinister.
He's I don't think anyone could ever have done the Goblin one.
Oh no, he's perfect for it.
I think really the only casting I have any complaints with, and I kind of want, because I want to save the two main leads.
Yeah, because we both have some good opinions on the two main leads.
For me, the only lead that I have issues with, and I'm not saying it's because he's a bad actor. It's more...
Is it Franco?
Frank, and it's just because he's too much of a pretty boy. I do agree with a lot of people that I think Harry's too much of a pretty boy here. But I think come to my opinion of that is not.
Well, and this is,
and I've warmed up to DeFranco. When I was younger, I was like, he's too.
I've never had any complaints about Franco in this movie.
Like I said, it's mostly.
I think a lot of the criticism comes from the fact he doesn't really do much in this film.
No, he does not.
His main point of the movie is he's Harry's best friend.
Or Peter's best friend.
I mean, yeah, he's Peter. Long day at work. Sorry.
Nah, it's okay.
He's Peter's best friend, and he's dating Mary Jane at the time, which is kind of like a rift between him and Peter, in which I actually own the novelizations for all these films as well, and as I've shared with him, the novelization actually elaborates a lot of stuff. I mean, there's actually a part after the graduation scene.
Yeah, where he basically uses
Peter's talking to Harry and
about
he's like,
why he loves Mary Jane and what
what Mary Jane goes through, and then it's mentioned later, like after that, where they're living in the city and Harry and Peter have an apartment together.
Yeah.
It's mentioned how Harry starts dating MJ, and that is he literally quotes Peter back to MJ and makes it seem like it's Harry saying it.
Yeah.
And that's why she goes out with him, despite the fact she showed up at their apartment to ask Peter out. Like, the novel adds a lot of layers to this.
I will admit is a shame, but like, and to be fair, I love Harry nowadays. Like, I think because I realized that Harry, while he is a pretty boy and a rich kid, he doesn't really care for, like, he's not nearly as smart as his father, which is something that drives a rift between the two of them.
I'm not even really sure it's that he's not as smart. He's just not as driven. Yeah, he's not driven enough.
Yeah, you're right. It's more of a driven thing, because I think he can grasp stuff, but he clearly doesn't care. He just wants his father to love him. And, that really, he really does portray the character, even though he doesn't get to, sorry, I was going to burp, do much in this movie. But what he does get to do is so great. And especially because I think they really do capture the friendship between him and Peter.
Oh, yeah, definitely.
One of my favorite scenes in this movie is when after the bus scene is when he's waiting out front for Harry. And the moment Harry gets out of the limousine, Peter's eyes just light up. You can tell that these two have been friends for, like, ever, and that Peter is and, like, not only that, Harry lights up a little bit too, because these two are the only two that like get each other. Like, they're best friends. I've always, and we're gonna get into fan stuff here, but I've always liked the idea that him and Peter were in a science class. Peter being, of course, the brightest kid in the room, because as
Peter Parker.
Well, he talks to Norman about I forget what he reads.
I can't remember it either. Here's the thing: it's different in the film than it is in the novelization.
He reads some big science magazine. It's like some and I think in like some biochemistry.
It's like some kind of research, and even Norman's like you understood it.
Like he's impressed with Peter, and I think one of the things that really gets is how much Norman really wishes Peter was his kid. Like, even in
which is a harken back to the comics.
Which is even in the because, like, Peter is everything Harry is not. He's driven. He's very science.
He's everything Norman wanted in a kid.
And I think that it really does kind of work to, and especially it's kind of a sad moment, because, like, imagine if Norman wasn't, like, evil. Imagine if, like, because he still has Uncle Ben, but imagine if he had this father figure who's younger than Ben, and who actually, like, because I know, like, Ben is a great character, but he doesn't understand science like Peter does. He helps Peter, but, like, imagine if he had a father figure in his life other than Ben, who...
Someone more along the lines of Reed Richards.
Yeah. Like, because, like, in some ways Norman could be. He can't hang with Reed, obviously, but, like...
There's an idea. Do a retrospective on Fantastic Four. That would be a long film.
But... And I think that is one of the big themes of the first Spider-Man film is the father's nature of the stuff. And I think that really helps. It's really sold well with Dafoe, Peter, and Harry. Because Dafoe and Harry, one of the subplots is Harry dating Mary Jane, and you can clearly see that some of Norman's issues with women also appear in this. Especially when he...
Groom her and dump her fast.
Yeah, when he basically tells Harry, just get what you need from her. And, like... Which I find so interesting
do you think she's hanging around with you because of your thrilling personality?
Yeah, it almost makes me think that, like...
in that scene, it's hard to tell if that's the Goblin doing that or if it's Norman. It's because it's... As someone who's, like... I've also done a lot of film study, because I do a lot of writing and stuff, and I've watched that scene again recently, and... Yeah. Like I said, I mentioned earlier, you can tell when Dafoe is playing who.
Yeah.
That scene, it's so much like a blend of both.
Yeah. And I think he wouldn't be nearly as good if you didn't have the kind of this struggle between Harry, Peter, and Norman for each other's affection. Because before Peter finds out he's the Goblin, you can really tell that he really appreciates Norman being in his life. Like that scene where Norman, like, wants to get him an internship at Oscorp, and Peter's like... And I think partially it's because he's like, I don't want
to be given it.
Yeah. Like, he wants to earn it. And I love it because, well, and then I think also because, like, he's also a little afraid, like, I can't go with my superpowers into this science lab. you know, and not only that, he's worried he'd lose it because he's Spider-Man. But I love Norman because he does see in Peter's like, you want to
stand on your own 2 feet.
I admire that, and I love that because it also it shows how much he respects Peter. You know, and I think that's rare in superhero films where the villain respects the hero so much to that degree, because the two of them are cut from the same cloth. It's just that Peter has the idea that with great power comes great responsibility. Norman has none of that. It's all power, no responsibility, which I think is a major theme throughout Raimi's films, is that a lot of his villains are shattered mirror versions of Peter, which we'll get to when we get to Spider-Man 2, which I'll do.
Yeah, to kind of bring in, honestly, probably one of the more memorable characters from the trilogy as well, J. Jonah Jameson.
Oh my God! Played by J.K. Simmons, who is
perfect casting. I mean, and he's even said recently, if they ever want to put Jameson back in a film, he's more than willing to come back, because he like Defoe enjoyed doing these films.
And to be fair, a lot of other directors would have just made him a bit part, just made him a joke. Raimi really gives the humanity to, like, that scene where the Goblin attacks the Bugle. He's like, Osborn, you slime, where's the guy that does the pictures of
He sends him in the mail.
I don't know who he is. He sends him in the mail. He could have ratted Peter out, and he doesn't. He's like, because
Peter was right in the other room.
Yeah, right in the other room. But and Jameson is scared for his life, but he's like, I'm not gonna rat out my that, even though he's a blowhard and he's willing to make this anti-Spider-Man campaign, he's still a good journalist at heart, and he's not going to rat out his...
Which is kind of one of my favorite scenes as someone who's taken a journalism class in college was, it's the... Spider-Man was trying to save the city. That's slander. Hey, I resent that. It's slander is spoken, in print it's libel.
I love that. That's such an adorable scene, and it's a shame we don't get more of the Bugle, because we have Betty Brant in that as his secretary, who I actually think has a bit of a decent character, because Peter clearly tries to hit on her.
She really doesn't do much. But with what's there,
Yeah, and we have Robbie in there, who is basically Jameson's conscience. If I'm being honest.
Is Brock in the first one?
No, he's not. You're thinking of Flash Thompson.
Yeah, in the novel, Brock's in it. Brock's actually in it, and it sets up really early on the dislike between him and Peter, because Jameson is criticizing Brock in a scene, and Brock walks out, and he basically insults Peter on his way out because he's mad. But the novel actually sets up what will eventually come in 3, pretty early.
Yeah, that Brock.
But it's again, it's a harken back to the comics.
Yeah, and also kind of the animated series, because him and Brock were.
Yeah, that's in the first episode of the TAS.
But unfortunately, Brock never shows up until the 3rd movie, which is a shame. Speaking of Flash, the only other character I don't think Raimi gets completely accurately is Flash Thompson, because he's basically just a bully. There's none of the humanity that Thompson has later on.
Well, and to be fair,
his admiration of Spider-Man.
Flash is only in it for the first 15, 16 minutes.
And he's really more the Ultimate Spider-Man. One of the bigger other influences of this was Ultimate Spider-Man, the fact that Peter went to high school with MJ and Harry when he never met them in regular continuity
till college.
But clearly they wanted to go with characters people knew, and using the Ultimate way, they can have Mary Jane and Pete and Harry be there from the beginning, and it feels natural. Which, in my opinion, is how you should do it anyways, because I think it gives much more characterization to Peter's friendship with Harry, his romance with Mary Jane. You can have Gwen in there if you want.
The Gwen in the Raimi films is very weird.
We'll get to that.
But yeah, you mentioned that it's more like Ultimate Flash than it is.
Yeah, where he's just a bully. He's just a thug.
I don't want to fight you, Flash. I wouldn't want to fight me neither. It's like...
Help him, Harry!
Which one?
That's such a great scene. Other characters, Aunt May and Uncle Ben are in it.
Great casting on both.
Aunt May, she doesn't get to do much until 2. Yeah. Which I think is really where they
Ben,
give her a character.
This is really the only one where Ben's really in it. I mean, there's flashbacks and other stuff later on in the other 2 films.
He's really only here to die, which is a shame because I love the actor who plays him. But really, most people only remember the scene where he's like, Peter.
Which is a shame because the car scene is actually very well acted.
Good.
Just because you can beat him up doesn't mean you should.
With great power comes great responsibility. I kind of wish that they had given the actual, because a lot of people forget that line is actually longer. It's just Peter shortens it because it's the line which, in my opinion, I think Stan Lee follows throughout his own life. With great power must come great responsibility. It's not that you just have to have. It's you get the power, but you must also learn that you have a responsibility to it. That if you have a gift, you shouldn't use it to hurt people. You should use it to help people, to better society, to do great things. This coming from a man who clearly had a soapbox to stand on. And why, like, I don't get why people think that Marvel hasn't ever been PC when this is, like, Stan Lee has been from the beginning an avid supporter of the little guy, of minorities.
I just noticed, and this is a little off topic, Far From Home is on your Dr. Pepper bottle.
Oh, yeah. This is also, I think this movie's also where Spider-Man and Dr. Pepper became kind of intertwined, as it were, because there's a lot of Dr. Pepper. Like when he's testing out his webbing, he webs the Dr. Pepper can.
I guess to kind of continue, we should move on to the two leads.
The two leads, yeah.
Say what you will, I think Kirsten Dunst was a great casting for MJ.
She does, especially
with the first film, especially being what it is. She does really well with what she's given. For those who don't know, the Mary Jane in this universe is a lot more similar to Ultimate.
Yeah, where she's not a bombshell, but she's much closer to like the girl next door, which I think works better for Peter as a whole. I love Mary Jane, but I've never really cared for her being like a supermodel. Like I like this one more where she wants to be a theater actress, and it
depends
she's much more,
on the era.
It does depend on the era.
The 80s, I think it fit. But everything else, actress, I think fits a lot better. But anyway, like I said, the MJ in the Raimi film verse is.
I hope it doesn't get on camera. What we just heard.
I don't think it will, but anyway.
Don't
some people walked by. You probably saw it in the rearview mirror, but anyway, the Raimi verse in this, MJ, which this is a little bit of inconsistency in the novel's part, I believe, is that the novel mentions her mom is still alive and living with her dad.
Yeah, well, I think that's more closer to the Ultimate series.
Yeah,
whereas I think in the film, like the
film never mentions her mom. I'm almost dead sure of that. And she's never seen. Yeah, but her dad is very, very abusive.
As he was in both versions of the comic.
Yeah. Something the novel elaborates on is why MJ dates Flash at the beginning of this movie is that MJ's dad really likes Flash.
Yeah, and he's an escape for her because he has a car. Like he can take her on to parties.
There's the social stature,
which allows her to just forget about her troubles.
The whole party girl atmosphere, which is a carryover from both, and more so 616.
And I think that this one here kind of gets it more like the party girl thing is, well, she does enjoy the party life. It's
a mask.
It's a mask to keep. Up. Yeah, like and it's only really let down with Peter because she knows he can, like, just understand her. Yeah,
a scene that really, in my opinion, puts that in great perspective is the scene. It's right around the time of the graduation scene.
Where he's taking the trash out.
Yeah, and they kind of have a heart to heart moment, and MJ's like, I want to be on Broadway.
I want to be an actress, and
Peter, God bless Peter. He's like, I cried when you played Cinderella. Peter, that was first grade.
You were great. I love Peter. Like, no, because like
that actually is brought up again in the novelization because Aunt May mentions it because MJ calls Aunt May to figure out where Peter's at and she's like, hi, May Parker. My name's Mary Jane Watson. I used to live next door, and Aunt May's like, oh, the wonderful girl who played Cinderella.
Oh my god!
I'm just like, oh my god.
And to be fair, I'm sure MJ was like, oh, bless this old woman's heart. Because I will admit that because they're doing the Ultimate stuff, but they're mixing it with. It is kind of a shame I get why they had to go with the father. It is a shame we don't get to have Aunt Anna and MJ and Aunt May. Yeah. It's because Aunt Anna is so important to Mary Jane. Not as much nowadays, which is a shame because I would love to see Aunt Anna and May together again because those two were always like great because Aunt Anna was clearly a much stronger woman. Like clearly she had lost a husband or something before. And her and Aunt May,
they hit it off.
Yeah, basically. They became and Aunt Anna's just like, oh no, like let me tell you about this Mary Jane girl, and probably Aunt May being like, oh I don't know, she's kind of like, and Aunt Anna's like, No, I think Pete actually even I bet because Aunt May, the one thing I always like about Aunt May, she just knows people, and she's all like, and the reason why she pushed Aunt Mary Jane into Peter is just how much good the two of them do. You know, like, because Peter is a good soul. She knows he's flighty, and like before she knew he was Spider-Man, but whatever other things, he's always a rock for people. That he will always help someone out, even if he can't do much at the.
And MJ recognizes that. Yeah, I mean, the scene where they're talking and Flash shows up with his car, yeah. You can tell, and Kirsten plays it really, really great in that scene, is that you can tell how conflicted she is. Because Peter's like, don't go, and MJ is like clearly torn between
she's
staying.
Like, I have to. Because, especially because like it's like either she can talk with Peter until she has to go back inside, or she can go party with Flash, and I think she just makes the choice where it's like, I just need to get away, and I don't think Peter blames her for that. He's upset, but I don't think Well,
and it's also mentioned that MJ's dad does not like Peter whatsoever.
I mean, and to be fair, nobody likes Peter because they think he's a loser, and
everybody hates Peter.
Yeah. And you get a lot. And I think it also helps that, like, MJ struggles. We actually see how much she struggles to get, like, we see that she's working in, like, a diner. That's
honestly a criticism I see come up a lot of people that don't like the Raimi films, is that MJ has no character development. She's very flat.
Which is so weird, because she does.
Yeah, she does. She has, what I think they're coming from with that is that it doesn't all happen in one movie.
Yeah.
It happens over the span of all three. And you have to look at it as a whole thing. She definitely does grow and, like, struggle as a character.
Especially because she's not going to college like Peter and Harry are. Like, she clearly is...
all in on the acting thing.
Yeah, so she's clearly doing, like, small jobs, trying to get bit parts where she can.
Which is common for a lot of actors.
In fact, I want to say she also, like, talks about how, like, she applied for all these roles and she got rejected like each time.
Well, and the famous line in the film is, a soap opera said I needed acting lessons.
Which is kind of funny because she wasn't a soap opera in the comics.
The novel elaborates on that. The casting coach who was in charge of that was Flash's aunt, who flat out turned her down even though she was the perfect fit for the role.
Yeah. Because
MJ broke up with Flash at graduation, and that was his aunt considered that a form of comeback.
Yeah, I mean, to be fair, it makes a lot of sense because, like, I think graduating, and one of the other important things is it clearly shows how much she wants to grow up. That, like, Flash was just a temporary thing for her, an escape for her so that she could finally get out on her own, escape from her dad's thumb, and live her own life. And the problem is, like, she kind of, like, and I think one of the things, like, showing how she grows up is she constantly goes to men, and this is especially true in 2, that can provide for her, because the guy she wants for some reason doesn't want to be with her, and she doesn't understand that until
the end of 2.
But, like, she knows there's something holding Peter back, and I think, so she tries to find other men, which is why she goes with Harry, because again, he's a safe choice, much like Flash was in a way.
Yeah, which I think on some degree Peter also gets, which. This would probably be... Go ahead and finish.
And, yeah, which is the tragedy of that, because Peter
deeply cares for her.
Like, it very much is like the comic. He needs her. Because she's an anchor for him. Like, I knew there was legitimate chemistry between her and Toby. Like,
they actually dated behind the scenes, in secret. They were done by the time 2 started pre-production.
And about that time they hated each other.
Yeah, which is kind of common. But the interesting thing is also that Franco and Toby didn't like each other either.
Yeah.
Because Franco also auditioned for the role of Peter and got turned down.
Also, Jake Gyllenhaal.
Really?
Yeah, or no, he was for 2. He was going to be the replacement for Toby.
Because Toby got hurt during 2.
And now he's Mysterio in Far From Home, which I think is kind of neat.
But Franco auditioned for the role of Peter and got turned down in favor of Maguire, and was given the role of Harry. But so there was that animosity because Franco wanted to be Harry because he was a fan.
Yeah.
But then he also apparently had a crush on Kirsten, and she and Toby were dating at the time. So,
which I want to say there was also a bit of an age gap with her and him, right? Because Toby was, sure. I want to say, was in like his 30s.
What time did Interview? Do you remember the year Interview with the Vampire came out? Because Kirsten was a kid during
90s, because she was like 12 or so.
Yeah, she was young.
I remember her in Small Soldiers, and I want to say she was like 15 or 16.
She was probably like 20 early 20s during this period.
Whereas Toby was in like his early 30s, which is a lot of people have complaints about his age, but I don't think it really is that big of a deal.
He's playing adult Peter Parker.
Yeah, especially because like he's clearly like a senior in high school when we get to him. It's not like the comic where he's 15 years old. And even then, in the comics, he did not look 15.
Yeah.
He looked like he was a solid 25.
But, yeah, overall, I love Kirsten as MJ. I will defend her acting on that to the death, I guess. But
and I think I do like her as well. In one, she has a very good bubbliness to her that I think fits the character. Honestly, there's really no problems I have with her until like 3, and that's only because like clearly they're writing her a certain way in the later film,
which we'll get to because there's a reason 3 is kind of the way it is.
And also, as Kirsten got on, which we'll get to again, she clearly got tired of the role just because of how Raimi wrote the role. I think she's at her best in 1 and 2.
Yeah,
more so in 2 for me, just because I
prefer in 1, but that's just me.
Yeah, I will admit she does get her complaininess that I think a lot of people don't like about her, but I think in 1 she's very solid, and especially because like she clearly wants to be with this man who for some reason rejects her, that she can't understand why, but like you can clearly like, but I think it works.
So I guess
it's not. It doesn't work as much as say Aunt May is that we'll get into I'll get into my opinions on some of Raimi's hokiness stuff, but.
Let's move on to the star, Tobey Maguire, who I'm just gonna say this and then I'll let you go because I took the lead with MJ.
No, you're fine.
Tobey is my favorite Spider-Man of the 3 live action ones. That's nothing against Holland or Garfield, and I'm gonna be totally honest, there is a bit of nostalgia attached to this, but when I think of Spider-Man, I think of Tobey because that's what I really grew up on, and as an adult Peter Parker, I think he was great for the role.
I would have to agree as well. I think he very much reminds me of the character from like the Silver Age, the comics that Raimi was trying to influence, and I think he works really well as it. I think he gets a lot of the humanity and the struggles of Peter really well. You know how much he wants to be with MJ, like how much he enjoys being Spider-Man, how much that getting those powers was like a freedom for him. I will admit, I think he works very well as that Peter. I've always argued that I think he does a great 616 Peter, much like Garfield does a much better Ultimate Teen Peter.
Oh, definitely, I totally agree with that.
And then I think Holland is
a good blend.
The MCU Spider-Man is weird for me. Like I like him much more as his own thing. Which I think is why I know you have your issues with.
I just don't like the characterization of Peter in that, and I have reasons for it, but that's a topic for another video.
Your reasons are very justified. I think I'm just able to just be like, you know what, this is the MCU Peter, this is just an alternate universe Peter Parker.
Well, that's what I do, but you know, a lot of my criticism comes from the fact that it's like, I've seen people try to justify like saying Holland is the best because it's the closest to 616, and I'm like, yeah, you've never read 616.
Yeah, no, he's very much Ultimate Peter. Like, he's much more of an Ultimate Peter for me. That being said, getting back to Maguire, I think he's very fun. I know a lot of people don't like the fact that he isn't as jokey, but to be fair, that's more of a Brian Michael Bendis. Modern Peter is too much of like Deadpool for me when he's Spider-Man. I think his Peter is much more of a snarker, and like the scene when he fights the Goblin, he's like, Hey, Junior,
let Mom and Dad talk.
That's much more of like the Peter I know, where he makes small little quips. He doesn't constantly jabberjaw like a lot of modern writers like to do with him.
Yeah.
It's much more
I would even argue Mayday in the comics is a little more guilty of that.
Yeah, like modern Peter is too much of a jabberjaw a lot of the time. Like I love that modern Peter. I just think a lot of writers want to write him as Deadpool, and he's not Deadpool.
Yeah.
Like, his quips are just jokes he thinks up at the top of his head, or when he's like, it's a way for him to not be afraid when he fights. And nowadays is just his thing. I will admit this Peter is very melodramatic, but again, that's very much '60s Peter Parker, where he's just like, "This is my gift."
I forgot how dramatic this kid was.
Like, and to be fair, like, could you blame him? He's like 16.
Yeah.
And he has the weight of the world on his shoulders, and that's another thing I think Raimi does really well with this Peter. You know, he's trying to balance his life. He's got a job. He's got college, which they also in this movie bring up Professor Kirk Connors, but we don't see him until 2.
Yeah,
which we'll get to.
No, he's in it. He's in it.
He's
in 1.
Him being in 1.
The scene where...
Are you sure this isn't a deleted scene? 'Cause I don't remember him.
No, this is not. I'm almost positive this isn't a deleted scene. It's very, very short, and it's before... It's the scene... I want to say it's before Peter sees MJ again, when they're out of high school, when Peter gets fired from the internship. I want to say that's in the film.
I want to say
I might be wrong.
They only bring up his name that he got fired from Connors' internship, or the internship with Dr. Connors. I remember they bring up Dr. Connors, but I don't think.
I swear that scene's in there. I swear on my life that scene's there.
He doesn't show up till 2, but.
Either way, even if he is, he's
very,
not
very
important
until 2.
They were building up to the lizard for 4, but that never happened.
Shame that it never did, because I like the
that actor has even expressed a lot of disappointment with that, because he was actually really on board with that.
I can't blame him for that. But like, you know, he tries to balance his job. He tries to go to college. He tries to help Aunt May out, and to be fair, the Aunt May stuff kind of gets set aside for 2. But like you can clearly see how much he's trying to balance his life, and then the Goblin comes in and he has to deal with this, because like for most of his time as Spider-Man, he's only fought like petty thugs and bank robbers. Like he's rescuing people from burning buildings.
And then
the
Green Goblin shows up, and the stakes kind of get higher.
Yeah, especially because like for Peter, he's going up, and he's going up against a man who's equal in power, and you can also tell this Spider-Man is very afraid. He's very, you know, he's like, I don't know what to do, which I think is very true of Peter in the early days of the comic. He very much was I don't know what to do.
Even into the 70s.
Yeah, he was very much, you know, sometimes like, I don't know what to do, but I have to fight this guy because I'm the only one who can.
Well, and it's also like something I think of when you bring that up. The first thing that came to my mind was right around the time MJ and him were getting married.
Yeah.
And you know, he's at the bridge.
Yeah, because he's
at the bridge where Gwen died.
Yeah,
and he's sitting there with a picture. He's sitting there with a picture of Gwen, and he's trying to talk to her, and he's like, I don't know what to do.
Yeah, very much, and he's very much a character who always he has a moment where he struggles, but then he remembers Uncle Ben, or he remembers, you know, like, it's my duty.
It's very much like the scene in Spider-Man the Final Chapter from the early run, the Ditko, the Stan and Ditko run, and it's like where, you know, he's lifting the he has to get the medicine for Aunt May because his blood almost kills her because that's radioactive, and he's like, I don't know what I'm stuck under here. I'm exhausted. I guess I'm just gonna die down here. I'm sorry. And then he remembers Aunt May, and he's like, what am I doing? I have to, I just have to use every ounce of strength I have to lift this thing off me. Which gets a harken in 2 with the train scene.
Yeah. And then they really do it in Homecoming, but I don't know if it works as well. I like it just because Peter takes the mask off, and he does it kind of works because it's like he's very much a real teenager. So like he's strapped under this thing, so he just starts calling for help, and then he looks down where his mask is in the water, because like he's under this like a bunch of water leaked down, so the mask is kind of laying in a puddle, and he just remembers, he's like, I can't. There's no one's gonna find me. I'm out in the middle of nowhere under all this rubble. I have to be Spider. So he goes like, all right, come on, Spider-Man. Like it's like, I can't be Peter Parker right now. I have to be Spider-Man, because the only Spider-Man can get himself out of this rubble. Whereas the scene much more with 2 and just Peter in general, it's more like I just have to find the strength I have, and I can't give up for the people that are counting on me.
Which is explored a lot. Interestingly, kind of like going through the movie a little bit. After Dafoe is the Goblin, he becomes the Goblin character, and
also Dr. Mendel Strom's in there, a very minor character that I'm kind of surprised they even remembered. His partner, and I honestly believe the guy who he started Osborn Chemicals with.
Yeah.
Although he doesn't really do much.
But yeah, the scene I'm thinking of
is
the choice scene.
Oh yeah, the sadistic choice where he's got Mary Jane and a cable car full of kids.
And he's like, you gotta pick one.
Which I also think was also kind of a bit of a jab at Batman Forever.
You never know when someone's gonna come along with a sadistic choice.
Which also was a great scene because right before that, when he blows up the cable, he's singing the itsy bitsy spider.
And he changes the words.
Down came the goblin and took the spider. It was so. I will admit, it's kind of hokey. It fits the goblin
character perfectly. It's Norman. At that point, he's totally.
Yeah.
You're out. You're out of your mind.
I love because Dunt's in the commentary is like, it's you who's out, goblin.
I've actually never watched the film with the commentary.
I've only seen that snippet from the commentary just because like everyone talks about how like she like clearly didn't. Well, I think at that point she's like, nah, this is kind of silly and fun. But I just kind of found that one line kind of. And to be fair, that's very true of Raimi's writing. He very much has a cheese to it. If you've ever watched like The Evil Dead or
I mean, Spider-Man in general has a cheese to it.
Or Army of Darkness, but like, and it's very true throughout his films. There's very much a cheese to it, but he also has a lot of horror elements in his Spider-Man films, which is very welcome for me.
Finish it.
Or like that scene where like he goes out to like that military testing place and blows up the general.
He blows all of them up.
Which did they ever say what the name of that mech was that he was testing it? I think you told.
It's in the book. I'll have to go home and find
I always want to believe it was called a Slayer, just because I'm like, oh, is it a Spider Slayer?
Yeah, I believe it's in the book. But...
that was such a stupid looking armor too, because it's like it's got these. It's clearly like a toy that's on a model.
But one honestly, I think every film in Raimi's trilogy has a very strong ending.
Yeah,
I'm sure some would debate me on 3, but I feel 3 also has a very strong ending. But with 1,
I think
I've always felt 1 had the best ending.
1 has the best ending.
It has this final battle with the goblin
and it's just the 2 of them.
And I mean, they're in an abandoned island, an abandoned building, and they're just hitting each other.
Yeah, and their armor, their costumes get torn.
Yeah, and
Spider-Man takes like a bomb,
he takes a pumpkin bomb to the face,
and it like rips almost all of his mask off.
And so the goblin has this whole thing where he's got Peter sitting there. He's like
and Peter's just exhausted. Like he tries to web away and he slams down on his wrist where the web shooter is.
Spun your last web, Spider-Man.
Which was also a controversial.
Had you not been so selfish, your little girlfriend's death would have been quick and painless. But now that you've really pissed me off,
I always remember that scene. Like the final fight in that is so.
MJ and I. We're gonna have a hell of a time.
And it really harkens to like when Peter is angry, there's no one scarier than
It really reminds me a lot of the night Gwen Stacy died.
Yeah, no.
That's really, and I feel like that was done purposely.
That was because like it ends the way the night Gwen Stacy died. Like Peter gets back up and he just wails on the goblin and it
brings a wall down
and it kind of shows that like clearly Peter is a lot stronger than the goblin.
He's holding back.
Because he doesn't want to kill the dude.
It leads into another example of Defoe's really good acting.
Yeah, because
he's sitting there and he goes back into the
he takes the mask off. He's like, Peter, wait, it's me. And
you killed all those people. You tried to kill Mary. No, the goblin killed. I had nothing to do with it. And don't let him take me again. Like he does. That's another example of Defoe really playing it well. He slips that voice in and then he goes back.
Yeah, and. I'm also really watching. Oh wow, we're going past 37. Okay,
this is part 2 too. We need to hurry up and get to 2 and 3.
I might shorten 2. I might shorten 2 and 3. Either that.
2 and 3 will probably be a part 3 if we get to it because we had a lot of setup in the first one, and then we talked about the first film, which the first film is arguably the most important one.
Yeah. And Peter's just like.
You've been a son. I've been a father to you.
And Peter's
be a son to me now.
And I think it really helps because it makes Peter it shows that Peter realizes that he's clearly he's seen who this man is and he knows